Hello! Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. That was super sweet of you. And welcome back to Makeup and Mental Health Wednesdays. Did you notice I'm back to my original intro? I don't know why. The last couple weeks I've been skipping my original intro where I do all my like fun artsy shots of my morning. Just because I was so focused on the content at hand. I felt like I didn't want to get too distracted by the intro. I'm still focused on the content at hand, don't worry. But we're back with a super fun intro. We're back with another episode of Makeup and Mental Health. And if it's your first time here, hi, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Makeup and Mental Health is a series I do every Wednesday on my channel where I, of course, do my makeup and also talk about varying mental health issues. Usually whatever's going on in the world, whatever's weighing on my soul. But of course, I'm always open to suggestions, so feel free to leave me a topic suggestion in the comments down below. And you already have seen from the title, but today's topic is gaslighting. We're going to be talking about what it is, defining the term gaslighting, how to recognize when you are being gaslit, and how to recognize when you might be gaslighting others. Specifically, racial gaslighting is something that I've been trying to educate myself more on over the last couple weeks. So I want to share some really good resources with you from different social justice activists that I have been following along on Instagram and on Twitter. So I want to share some really good resources with you and hopefully suggest some new people for you to follow. And I hope that you will join me in having a greater conversation about gaslighting in the comments down below. I love to facilitate conversations about mental health in the comments, so please leave me a comment. And if this sounds like a topic that might be interesting to you, then I encourage you to please subscribe so you never miss an episode of Makeup and Mental Health, and keep on watching because it's coming at you right now. Okay, so the word gaslighting is defined by manipulation into making somebody think that their thoughts and feelings are not valid and make them crazy, for lack of a better word. I hate to use the word crazy, but that is the point behind gaslighting, is to make a person think that they are not well mentally because of how they are in that situation. And people can be gaslit to the point of suffering mental illness because of how manipulated they are by the person. I found out today that the word gaslighting was named after this film Gaslit, where the main character manipulates this woman so badly and makes her feel like everything around her is acting against her and like she is going crazy, into the point where she actually does struggle with mental illness and start to slowly feel like she's slipping into insanity. So that's where the term gaslighting came from, evidently. A little fun fact for you. I wanted to talk about gaslighting today because I feel like the more and more uncomfortable conversations I have been having with friends and family members regarding race and regarding the racial disparities in this country and the police brutality that is aimed towards Black people in this country, the more I have noticed the people I'm talking to try to gaslight me into thinking that what I'm saying is not actually valid, into thinking that the facts that I'm sharing are manipulated, making me feel like my information is faulty for whatever reason. And I've noticed it happening more and more. And the first thing I want to say is that I recognize that me being gaslit for having conversations about racism is so far below actual Black people experiencing racism targeted towards them and racial gaslighting targeted towards them. So I recognize that, like, I'm not trying to complain. The sort of gaslighting I'm experiencing right now is not having a horrible effect to my mental health. But I still think it's worth mentioning, because if you are someone who is also trying to be a better ally and you are trying to have conversations with people where we are trying to get people to recognize racial disparities in this country, and you might be having conversations with people who are being called out as racist for the first time, they get very defensive, and gaslighting is what they try to do to make themselves feel better. They're trying to make you feel like you were in the wrong so they don't have to live with you calling them out for being racist, you know? I think it's a lot more helpful to recognize that you've done it so you can try to get better from there, but a lot of people are going to detract from that feeling and are going to gaslight you into thinking that you're in the wrong and you're accusing them for no reason. So I think as white allies, we have to be on alert for gaslighting in those conversations so that we can have more productive conversations, and that so we cannot waste all of our energy on someone who is never going to have a productive conversation with us. But we also need to recognize racial gaslighting as allies, because we are not immune to racial gaslighting. No one is immune to racism and racist microaggressions and racial gaslighting, because racism is so systemic. It's built into our education system, it's built into society. The 13th Amendment still exists. Slavery is still going on, it's just in the prison system now, and it's in the criminal justice system. We need to recognize that racism is systemic and not just spend all of our time denying that we've ever done anything racist, because it's really unlikely that you haven't. So today I wanted to showcase some resources that I have discovered from an amazing social justice activist. Their name is OGOR, but I thought that these resources were so helpful, and I definitely recommend you follow them. I'm going to put their Instagram handle down below, but their examples are as follows. If you protested / said it peacefully, more people would listen to you. Now, this is one I recognize very well. I have heard it from countless family members. I have had many arguments, debates, discussions about it. The big problem with saying that is that you are saying that you know the correct way to protest, and that way is peacefully. Black people have been protesting peacefully for hundreds of years, and it hasn't accomplished what they needed to accomplish, and even now they are still protesting peacefully for the most part. But if there is some violence during all of that, it's because they are angry, and rightfully so. It's the culmination of hundreds of years of anger and frustration for being forced to live in a systemically racist system, to live in a country that claims where everyone is free, where that is still not the case today. Slavery still goes on, as I said earlier. It just exists in the prison system and the criminal justice system. So for you to come out and say peaceful protesting is the only correct way to protest, you are insulting all Black people. You are saying you're doing it wrong, you should do it this way, even though you've already done it this way and it didn't work. You sound really ignorant when you say it, first of all, but the reason it's gaslighting is because you're saying you have the answer, but your answer is a lie. Your answer is not proved by any facts. You're giving an answer that has no claim behind it. It has no evidence to support that it is the correct way to do things. It makes you sound really ignorant. You should never try to speak to the experiences of a Black person if you are not a Black person. Period. End of sentence. That's it. Another example that OGOR gave is what I said / did is not racist. That goes right back into what I've been saying before. You cannot speak to the experience of a Black person if you are not a Black person. You cannot say that what you did was not racist if you are a white person speaking to a Black person. They experience racism head on constantly, 24/7, 365 days a year. So I think they would know better than you to recognize what racism looks like, you know? And rather than be offended, rather than be horrified and just deny, and to say you're wrong and to gaslight them, what you can do, apologize. Just apologize, commit to do better. That's all you can do. That is the only correct answer to responding to somebody calling you out for being racist. Okay, the next one. Racism doesn't exist anymore. Again, if you were a white person who is not experiencing the racism that Black people experience every day in this country, you have no right to tell them that it does not exist. That's it. End of story. There's nothing else to unpack there. You have no right to tell them that. You need to listen instead of speaking, and stop gaslighting Black people rather than listening to the important resources that they're giving. I forget who said this. I'm going to try to find who said this quote, but they said calling out racism is an act of love. Calling out racism to somebody says that you have hope that they could change and learn. So you should take that as somebody caring about you, thinking highly enough of you that you could change, you know? It's, if you want to view it in a positive way, I think that's a very positive way to view it, rather than getting defensive, saying racism doesn't exist anymore. Another one on here was, are you sure that's what happened? Rather than try to deny that racism is happening and that systemic racism has existed for hundreds of years in this country, try to learn more about it. Why are you denying something that there are facts to support? And especially when Black people are expending their hard-earned energy on you to educate you, and you reject that education, it's incredibly ignorant, and you have to listen. It does make you feel like you're going insane when somebody's denying the experiences that you have had. Racial gaslighting is incredibly dangerous, and we need to recognize examples of it so that we can make sure that we never ever do it, and if we see somebody else doing it, that we call them out and let them know what they're doing and let them know that they need to stop. Okay, these next two I find especially dangerous. They're all incredibly dangerous, but these I think are just horrible. Just to play devil's advocate here, in my opinion, I don't think that they were being racist. I think, okay, so this whole idea of devil's advocate, playing the other side just to play the other side, is nonsense. And I blame the education system for having teachers play the devil's advocate so much, because I think that's what put it into all of these white boys' heads that they could just do this. Of course it's white women too. I'm sorry I just said white boys, but it's white people generally. This idea of playing the other side just to play the other side, even though it might not be right, is damaging to people's mental health, and it's gaslighting, because even you might know that it's not true and you're just doing it to make sure we explore all of our options. Here's the deal. If one of the sides of the story is the racist side of the story, we don't need to discuss it, we don't need to give it the light of day, we just need to call it out as racism and move on and continue learning and growing as people. There's no reason to play devil's advocate to represent that side. There's no reason to say, in my opinion, I think that what they did wasn't racist if you are a white person who has not experienced racism like black people in this country have. You don't get to have an opinion on racism. That one goes back to the racism doesn't exist anymore, or the what I did wasn't racist. Like, you don't get to have an opinion on it. You just don't. You don't get to have an opinion on it when somebody calls you out for doing it, and you don't get to have an opinion on it when somebody else has done it. I think a really good example of this that we see in the beauty community all the time is Jeffree Star. I know a lot of people have forgiven Jeffree Star for what he has done, for the racist things he has said and done over the years. I'm not going to get into all of them. You can find those resources very easily. But a lot of people are very willing to forgive him, and a lot of those people are white people, and I just don't think that we as white people have a right to say that he's done enough to be forgiven. That's up for black people who have taken his racism and his fans' racism head on. That is their choice to make. And I think that's a good example of that. It's my opinion that what he did wasn't racist, or what they did wasn't racist. No, we don't get to argue. It was perceived as racist by many, many, many black people. Clearly, they know how to recognize racism better than white people do, so I would be more apt to believe them. And also, it's very clear-cut that what he's done over the years is racist, so I really don't understand how there could be any argument at all whatsoever about that. But I think that's a good example of saying, okay, this is a person that maybe in the past I supported, I'm feeling weird about this, I'm feeling attacked because they're a person that I supported, so I feel like I need to stand up for them and explain what they were doing. Don't do that. That's their business to explain. That's their racist past that they need to explain. You should not stand up for them. You absolutely should not stand up and try to excuse somebody's racist past, because that's their racist past. It's not yours. And it feels like people are projecting when they try to explain somebody's racist past, because maybe they did something similar and they want to make sure that everybody knows that that thing is not racist. But it's better to just focus on yourself and to focus on bettering yourself and to call people out and demand that they apologize for their actions and demand that they commit to do better. But it is really not worth trying to excuse anybody's racism. That makes you look really silly and really dumb. Okay, one that I accidentally skipped over was, "It's just a joke, calm down." That is one that I will absolutely admit to being guilty of. I've never said a racist joke directly to a black person before, but I definitely, when we were preteens, my friends and I used to share jokes that we saw on Facebook that we thought were funny because they were dumb, because they were racist and stupid, but we still shared them. And that was not okay, and that's something I can never undo, but it's something that I have never ever done since then, because I realized that even though you might think it's just a joke, oh, it's a joke, I would never say this to somebody in real life, it's still hurtful, and it still feeds your underlying racism that is within you and is within all of us, because it's systemic racism. You can't help it. You have to do the work to be actively anti-racist and assume that you already have racism ingrained in you that you don't even recognize. So rather than continue to feed that underlying racism and say, well, I can make jokes as long as I don't actually do the thing that I'm talking about in the joke, no, because you're still contributing to that being okay. If you're a girl, you know how many dumb jokes there are about girls. Remember all those dumb blonde jokes that people used to tell all the time? There are so many jokes that make women the butt of the joke, and I feel like we as a society now have come to a place where we said, that's not funny, we won't accept that anymore. But what about black people? What about black women? What about black trans people? What about black men? What about all black lives? There are so many jokes targeting different black lives and different black demographics, and none of them are funny and all of them are hurtful. I've called family members out for making jokes that made fun of a certain race, and they said, well, I don't understand, it's just a joke, we're just having fun, I'm not hurting anybody. But yeah, you might not be hurting anybody directly or physically, but you're still contributing to that systemic racism that allows you to think that making jokes like that are okay. It's an endless cycle. You see what happens, and they're not funny anyway, so you're really not missing out on anything by not telling these jokes. Alright, I believe that's all I have from me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely follow OGOR on Instagram if you have an Instagram, which of course you do. It's 2020, we all have Instagram, but you should definitely follow them on there because they have so many great resources. And if you are a Black person, they have excellent resources for healing racial trauma. Of course, we understand that that is not going to be healed in a day, but they have really good mental health resources on there, which I think is awesome, and I just think they're really great. And I'll be sure to link many other accounts down below of social justice activists who I follow, who I think are really great and who I suggest that you follow too. Sassy, Latte, Rachel, Cargle. I'm talking about them all the time, but I'm gonna link them down below anyways. There are so many people you should listen to who are not me. I hope that I have just inspired you to go listen to other people, because I absolutely should not be the top voice talking about racial disparities in the United States. All I can do is encourage you to be a better ally and to provide you with resources if you haven't seen them yet. So definitely be sure to leave more of your own resources down below if I miss anything in the description box. I would love to make this video as helpful as possible for anyone who is watching. I'm gonna put a link to a bunch of petitions, places to donate without money down below. There is so much that still needs to be done, and we all need to keep working really hard to be actively anti-racist and calling out racism when we see it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!